Use Dr. Michael Baum, who is DDGR for research for ICARDA. ICARDA is a CGIAR center focusing on the global drylands. So over to you, Michael.
Thank you very much for the kind introduction. And as we know, so the topic is probably the most important and the most interesting one for this part of the world. And we tackle how we save water for agriculture, how we perform agriculture in this part of the world for the generations to come, and especially for the next 20 years. It's some of the key questions, because today we see the effects of climate change as they maybe were predicted to happen in 20 or 30 years. So the 1.5 degrees temperature increase that we aim to achieve, or that we reduce by the end of the century, has been achieved already today. So I think until the end of the century, we are up for much more trouble, and that's why I think it's really important that from all aspects we work together in order to see how we can address drought tolerance, water scarcity, especially in the driest area, because the livelihood of the communities that live there, they still would like to have a living there tomorrow, and continue to live there. So that's why it's really important that we put all our efforts and strengths together, from biophysical side, from policy side, in order to make it happen. And of course, there are numerous innovations that can help us really to adapt to these extreme conditions, and that can help us, to extend livelihoods longer. And so that's a very fascinating session, and I'm happy to be here. And let's hand over to the moderator for the session.
Go this way, that way. Yeah, thanks so much for this kind opening remarks on behalf of ICARDA. ICARDA is co-organizing these sessions with the International Food Policy Research Institute. And myself, I'm both the moderator of the session and I'm giving the first talk. My name is Claudia Ringler, and I'm the Director of Natural Resources and Resilience at the International Food Policy Research Institute. And this first talk, that is hopefully coming in now, focuses on an interesting question in this global water scarcity debate. And that is, we know that most water is used in agriculture. So how much water can we get out of agriculture, right? So we have climate change, we have scarcity, and we have multiple water users. So including domestic, industrial, the environment, but of course, most of the water is still being used in agriculture. So we did a little study for the Global Economics Commission on water. And now the slides could come in. Oh, perfect. And they asked us, how much water can we save in agriculture? That was their question. Because things look quite dire for all sectors, also agriculture. And they said, how much of that water can we get out of agriculture? And so next slide, please. Oh, there's a clicker. Okay. Yeah. And so, I think I've already mentioned, so we have a pretty dire water situation globally. This is from the WMO, just looking at the world river discharge in 2023. And you can see brown means less water, blue means more water, and white is we're average. And obviously globally, we pretty much have moved into the brown area in 2023, various reasons, but obviously this is kind of where the future and where the trends are going. And those are some pictures. This is from the US. This is from the Amazon, where the dolphins cooked because it was too hot. Top right is from Pakistan, and the bottom right is from East Africa. So while we have overall lower discharge and we have water scarcity, we also have more extreme events. So that means, also more floods. And so we have seen both in 2023, we are seeing both in 2024, we're seeing both every year. So in this environment, Yeah, and as our opening remarks already said, it's also getting quite hot. So in this environment, how much water can we get out of agriculture? So I've already said agriculture is the largest water user, even more so when we look at the consumption side. So around 85% of global freshwater withdrawals are consumed in agriculture. But the big challenge is, so when we got this question, we right away said, the challenge is that agriculture is also already suffering. So agriculture, has only 75 to 80% of the irrigation water supply as compared to the irrigation water demand. So if we move more water out, the challenge in agriculture will get worse, and we will also see more food insecurity and more hunger. And basically so if we were really able to move the water out of agriculture, 4 things would happen. So either we will finally meet existing unmet water demands. As I said, there is 15 to 20, 25 to or 20% of current demands are already not met. Or, if we find some water saving technologies, farmers will increase cropping intensity. Obviously then using the water in agriculture, or they'll change crop varieties, or they expand crop area. So that is probably more likely to happen than water moving out of agriculture. So we looked at this question, doing some scenario analysis out to 2050, using RCP7 and 3 climate change scenarios. And the bottom just shows the average change in temperature and in precipitation under those scenarios. No surprise, getting hotter, the water cycle is accelerating. That means we also have more water. That is the floods that you have seen. So, but the water is not coming at the right time. So the scenarios that we looked at for the Global Commission on the Economics of Water includes changes in agricultural water management. So that's one way to increase the efficiency of water use in agriculture. Advanced seed technologies actually has been one of the most effective means, short duration varieties, dwarf varieties. So you don't need as much water to get the same yield or the same food out of those crops. Change in diet is now also typically being looked into. And of course, we can also look, because this was a question, how much water can we move into the environment? So rather than using agriculture as the entry point, we can also just directly use the environment as an entry point and say, okay, we conserve groundwater depletion. So we stop depleting groundwater going forward, or we can eliminate the expansion of both rain-fed and irrigated area. So those are all ways to save water in agriculture. And then, of course, we can combine those various scenarios as well. And these are basically the results. So under business as usual from 1909, BCM, billion cubic meters of irrigation water depletion. Under business as usual, we are slowly going up to 2,110 BCM in this particular assessment. With seed technology, we can save 100 BCM, precision irrigation, 197, and down it goes. If we combine the scenarios, a set of technologies, we can save 554 BCM. And if we also don't allow groundwater to be depleted, obviously we can save a lot more. Yeah, this is again the numbers just shown in a graphical way. Our modeling doesn't show much water savings from reducing meat consumption in high-income countries, because that actually means that prices for these products decline, and we have so much unmet demand for the same products in the majority world. So they actually will just have access to more of these commodities. So globally, we will not see a large decline in water use from that particular intervention. Yeah, and then, but what we then again, told the Commission, you can save some water, but it will be very difficult, but you have a very strong trade-off with food security and hunger. And so basically, the more water, so if you save the water and you put it back into agriculture, you can actually do a very good job on increasing food production. So this is you can increase food production from 10.5 billion metric tons to more or less 13 billion metric tons, and you can reduce the population at risk of hunger from around 600 million in 2050 to down to 400 million people. So rather than putting that water into the environment, if you actually recycle it and reuse it in agriculture, you can make a big difference. And then this is an example for one of the river basins, the Indus River Basin in Pakistan, where you start with 153, I guess, million tons of crop production. You can go up with the strongest scenario that combines precision irrigation and various other technologies. And at the same time, your irrigation water use could be reduced. So if you are able to implement these measures. So we do believe that water savings in agriculture are necessary. You simply cannot do without, because climate change, extreme events, heat stress are obviously increasing in intensity. But at the same time, coming from a food security perspective, considering the environment, we don't think that as much as desired of that water will actually go into the environment. We think most of that actually has to be reused in agriculture to address growing food security challenges. And of course, the big question is, how can you actually move some of that water out of agriculture? Because it's also understood that you do need more water for domestic industrial water use. And obviously, we want to also support the environment. So the truth is somewhere between the maximum water savings out of agriculture and all water savings being reused in agriculture, right? So we need to find some pathway in the middle, and that pathway will depend for each country, depends on the country's plans, also on the country's needs, on the country's water scarcity level. And with that, the first talk is concluded. Some more conclusions. But yeah, so I really just wanted to show that there is a need, there is a potential, but there's very huge trade-offs between moving water out of agriculture and food security goals. But with some of those interventions on efficiency, seed technologies, etc., we can make some difference that can support food security and the environment. Okay, now we're like to introduce our second speaker, because I'm also the moderator. And our second speaker is Professor Yoshihide Wada. He's a professor at King Abdullah University of Science and Technology in Saudi Arabia. And before taking on this job, he was the director of IASA's Biodiversity and Natural Resources Program. And with no further ado, Yoshi, if you please come to the screen. And there is this clicker.
Thank you very much. I think we are still good morning. Good morning, everybody. So I'm at King Abdullah University of Science Technologies, which is like near Jeddah. It's about a 1 hour drive from Jeddah to like the north. And I'm a professor at the KAUST. And so KAUST, I'm here like about 2 years in Saudi Arabia, and we are very interested in like the climate impact on the water sectors, and also the ecosystem sector, energy sectors, and also like biodiversities and energy. So we took like the effort last year to compile the report. It's called the Climate Future Report for Saudi Arabia and the 3-degree warmer world. And Claudia showed that the temperature increase and also precipitation changes. And we wanted to understand how that's actually like affecting Saudi Arabia in different sectors. And this was the effort for like a Tree Institute, KAUST, and Eon Collective. That's like a think tank in Saudi Arabia, headed by the Princess Mashael, and also CAPSAC, that's the energy think tank under the Ministry of Energy in Saudi Arabia. So I took the lead for the waters and food sector under Saudi Arabia's, and other people like look at like ecosystems and also energy sectors, and also like urban living built environment, and overall coordination by Professor McCabe. And we are looking at like a 3-degree warming currently globally. So Saudi Arabia, we are going through like 4-degree warmings. And during the summer, warming is already like almost more than 2 degrees. We saw the news that, we overshoot it like 1.5 degree already this year. Saudi Arabia, we already exceeding 2-degree warmings compared to like pre-industries. So our, situation here that is much more intense, like the warmings. And if you look at the different scenario, we have more like +1 to +2 degree. Currently, I think we are going somewhere between like SSP2, SSP3s, and so we have much severe situation in the Saudi Arabia's. And so how that's affecting like different sectors, including water and the food sectors, like we have coral bleaching because of like higher salinities and also like less rainfall, higher evapotranspirations. Then we have also impact on the fisheries. So you might not know, but the Saudi Arabia actually investing like a lot for the aquaculture. We have one of the largest aquaculture in the Red Sea, producing like 1 million tons of the fish, like each year. And obviously there's quite a severe impact on the food sector. So we are importing about 80% of the food, Saudi Arabia's. So the impact of climate change is not just affecting Saudi Arabia, but also the other country, which indirectly affecting our food supply through the food trade. And this is basically like a cascading to like a different impact on like economic stabilities and also the public health. Now it's like a very good weather and you don't see so much heat, but in the summertime, like a temperature goes close to 50 degrees in Riyadh. Right now you're in the right time, you came in the right time, Saudi Arabia. And we have also like quite a severe dust storms, sometimes from like a Sahel, or also like the other part of like the neighboring countries. And due to that, the severe environment, like we have quite facing like a loss of the biodiversities, also affecting like water depletions and the food securities. And I just want to give you like a quick overview, like where's the water coming from, Saudi Arabia. You see that it's very dry country here. You know the rainfall in Saudi Arabia? Anybody? Sorry? 0? Yeah, maybe close to 0. 10 to 20, okay. Anybody else? Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Can be higher. Yeah, that's correct. So the average, like we have only 100 millimeter per year, Actually, now it's like a rainy season. We don't see so much rain, but now it's rainy season. It's a winter time. And the southern parts, like rainfall goes to like up to 300 to 500 millimeter. That's close to like Yemen's and a little bit affected by the Indian monsoon. So, because that it's very dry country, we pumping groundwaters like quite a lot. And we're using 80% of the water from groundwater, which is mostly fossil groundwater. And we have lack of natural fresh waters and the rainfall is less than 150 millimeters. And so, last 30, 40 years, we are heavily relying on the fossil groundwater to produce the wheat and like also like alfalfas for the livestock feed. So now that, however, we're facing severe groundwater depletions. So the government is trying to reduce like groundwater depletions and they're substantially reducing like the wheat cultivations and also alfalfa like for the livestock feed. And also we're shifting to like a modern technology for like a vegetable and the fruits, like a vertical farmings, and the desalination capacity is increasing quite rapidly. So the plan is that we're gonna increase like 3 times the desalination capacity in the Saudi Arabia. And the cost was a few dollars per cubic meter in 10 years ago, now down to $0.50 cubic meter. So which is, equivalent to the conventional water supply cost. So the desalination is very affordable. Obviously, we have to think about the environmental like impact. But now that, desalination is actually capable to supply like all the drinking water and the industry, except the agriculture. So agriculture is still like a big sector, how to, supply waters. And also currently in the kingdom, we also developing like the wastewater reuse strategies. So currently 30% of the treated wastewater is reused. But we are improving to 80% by 2030 in all the major cities. So we're gonna try to establish like a circular system in the water. So that in the Riyadh, like, we have a lot of wastewater. Currently it's not reused very much. So we want to reuse for like also Saudi Green Initiative. You might have heard like planting 10 billion trees, and you might be thinking where the water come from, and it's a lot of come from the wastewater. Not just the groundwater, but we're gonna use a lot of wastewater for the regreenings. That's the one of the pillar of the Saudi Arabia. And so another highlight is that I think Claudia mentioned about the food securities, and Saudi Arabia importing 80% of the food. A lot of the wheat come from other country, which has also groundwater depletions. So there's also interdependence of like domestic and international like water issues, and this has to be coordinated and tackled by the international like initiative like UNCCD or like IPCC, IPBES. There's no international water body right now. So that's a bit of a challenge that how to coordinate among different countries. But we are relatively quite a vulnerable positions for the food security looking at the next 10 to 20 years. Even the modern technology is coming, it's quite a big challenge for the kingdom. Because population is increasing plus 1 million per year in the Saudi Arabia. So it's quite a significant population growth. So with that, I would like to conclude, and thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much for describing the pretty stark and pretty challenging situation in Saudi Arabia, as well as some solutions such as getting the reuse of wastewater up to 80%. And I think a lot of investment in technology and of course, very diversified import policy. I think that is a key intervention that Saudi Arabia has been doing for quite some time. And yes, as he said, Saudi Arabia has severe groundwater depletion, but they're importing wheat from countries with severe groundwater depletion, including India and Pakistan. And we do have talks on India and Pakistan coming up. So I think that's quite nice. So our next presentation is actually by ICRISAT. So Dr. Mangi El-Jad, he's the Global Research Program Director, Resilient Farms and Food Systems at ICRISAT. And he's going to talk to us about managing water in drylands, and maybe he can say why you guys are exporting wheat to Saudi Arabia.
Thank you so much, Claudia. Good morning, everyone. So we talk about the drylands and the water. I think it's very, very complex. So without wasting a lot of time, what Claudia have already highlighted about the challenge, what we are facing, the 2/3 of the world is facing severe water stress, and half of that population is in India and China, 2 countries. I mean, of course, the rest of the world. And we are doing a rampant, groundwater extraction, to produce food. So a lot of food coming from at the cost of the groundwater, which is not a sustainable option. And I think we have to manage our water appropriately, especially in the drylands. Now, managing water in the drylands, I think when we talk about the water, I think there are 2 ways. One is harvesting the rainwater. And harvesting rainwater ex situ or in situ, both the options, but then managing the water through designing our cropping systems at the water budgets, what is there, and also the efficient irrigation systems or smart irrigation system, precision, drip, all those things what you have mentioned, Claudia. Now, when we talk about harvesting water in those areas, we have to understand where we harvest water ex situ and where we harvest water in situ. And that's what colleagues at ICRISAT have done, comprehensive studies on what makes sense in terms of harvesting the water ex situ and in situ, looking at the relationship of the runoff with the rainfall areas, and we see, where we can harvest, and also where we can have better base flow of the riverine systems and all those things. So there's a relationship, and there are good studies. And I think we need to understand where to harvest ex situ and in situ. Also, we need to understand the upstream and downstream runoff dynamics, when we harvest up water. And there are a lot of insights on that. And we have to consider this dynamics of the upstream and downstream runoffs. We have to satisfy the upstream as well as downstreams when we harvest the water of the rain. Now, in terms of the in situ, I think there are simple technologies or interventions which clearly shows even the raised bed planting. And I think ICARD have been working a lot on in this region on raised bed planting. And you can see, how much the soil loss we can minimize and also improve, the runoff or reduce the runoff in those systems in different soil types. So this is a study coming from ICRISAT in 2 soil types, vertisols and alphisols, which make a lot of sense. So this is simple one intervention which farmer can adopt and still reduce the soil loss and harvest more water in situ. Also, there another example, even in the field bonding, which is a simple intervention can be adopted by the farmer, which some of those surplusing arrangement for the excess water, and you can increase the productivity in those rain-fed areas or water-limited areas. The one example which is coming from ICRISAT's dryland living lab, and you can see those permanent raised beds versus the conventional tillage flat beds. And you can see the lot of soil loss happening there, where you can see the soil is intact. So you can minimize the soil loss and conserve more water, which helps in producing more crop out of that water. One example, which is a mixed model of in situ and ex situ, and clear example coming from one of the landscape site. When we see without interventions at the landscape, you see the rainfall is 1120 millimeters. Still, you see a lot of fallow areas. But when we go to the landscape scale interventions, you can intensify the system even with less water or the less rainfall, which is 708 millimeters. Even at the 600 millimeters of the rain, you can have much more intensification if you have, make a combined use of the in situ and ex situ interventions at the landscape scale. So, and which leads to the intensification of the cropping system and improving the productivity of the crops. We've been working intensively on the landscape approach. And these are some of the examples, many of those landscape sites, for example, in India, which we have created and worked at the range of the 400 millimeter to 1500 millimeters of the rain, over 150,000 household, 100,000 hectare area. So this is evidence coming from the larger area, which clearly indicates you can increase the income of the farmer, you can increase the base flow of the water system, you can minimize the emissions, you can improve the livelihoods and sustainable intensification of the degraded land through the landscape approach. This work was awarded by UNDP Mahatma Biodiversity Award. The another one, example coming from Africa, you can see the smart water management systems. I'm just concluding. Improve the productivity and also the save on the water, on the contour terracing in the rain-fed areas, help in improving the water tables coming up and also improving the productivity. There's another example of the agropastoral intensification, for example, in Ethiopia, which is helping in terms of intensifying the system and restoring the degraded lands. I don't know, I had one more slide before that. Can you go to the last one? Yes, next. There is one more slide here. Anyway, we put together the complete comprehensive approach in terms of the landscape management for conserving water, but I think that need to be integrated, just not the water. You have to manage soil, you have to manage other things, and that's where you need a complete value chain interventions in terms of improving the productivity of water and also arresting the land degradation. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Thanks so much for, this was a whirlwind of solutions across drylands in Africa and Asia. So yes, we can do something about it. And hopefully addressing climate change, improving food security, and maybe also improve environmental sustainability. So now we move over to Pakistan, and our next speaker is Dr. Mohsin Hafiz. He's the Strategic Program Director for Water, Food, and Ecosystems, and I work quite closely with him in the CGIAR Nexus Gains initiative. And he will, move, from in situ, ex situ water harvesting into solar irrigation, which is really the big and coming thing. And we see a lot of that now in the dryland areas. Please over to Mohsin Hafiz. Thank you.
Thanks, Claudia. Thank you. Thanks, Claudia. Just I will be talking about the solar irrigation and see what's the potential of solar irrigation in South Asia. We see that one in the till 1960, many parts of the Asia, we are thinking it about that one. There is a freshwater use was not, but with the part of the green revolution, fresh water has been used exponentially in Southeast Asia. As well as when we are looking around the energy demand, we are saying that from 2000 onward, then the energy demand is basically again substantially improving it as a part of the time. And also when we are looking around the more on the agriculture system, agri-food system, we are again seeing the trend from 1960, that's an exponential rise on that one. What that means, showing it that the tube well, the groundwater, which is actively contributing uh, uh, for the irrigated crop and for the food security, that's an important one, and we must consider that one. That due to that water scarcity, due to rising costs of the pumping, electrical and diesel, many farmers started going on that one solar irrigation, and many governments are promoting the solar irrigation, but not looking in the bigger context, how that will be beneficial for the overall the ecosystem, what will be the impact of that one. And then one thing is on the capital cost for the initial one is very high, but then later on, then there is a free subsidy. Many governments in part of South Asia are providing a subsidy in India, Pakistan, and many other countries. So we are looking around the solar irrigation and then the water energy food nexus. Again, it's just when we are talking about the solar irrigation, that's quite a complex, around 350,000 to the around that when the solar pumps are only in India, in Pakistan around 50,000, which I will explain in a minute, and then in Nepal and other countries also, in Nepal in thrice certain solar pumps. But we see an exponential rise of that one, the solar pumps are only in India, and they are the 5 states, which is around 75% of the installed solar pumps at that one, and those are the area where there is a water scarcity is also having a major impact on that one. And one thing is pretty, that one, the difficult that one, it's hard to manage on that one. That's much more complex than what we are doing it on the basically that one, the electric pump, which are connected with the feeder and everything. And again, that one, the rising, that one solar number of pumps are increasing in the water stressed state than in the water abundant in the Ganges basin. Here I'm giving that one, the 3 examples from the India, 3 solar pumps promotion models in India, which IMI has used it. On this one, the solar promotion policy, one is connected with the off-grid solar irrigation pump, commonly in lieu of new grid power connections. Other is till and farmers to solarize agri-fields to serve the free power of irrigation. And third is grid connected, net metered and everything. And when we are looking around all those one, I will not go through, but important is coming. We are getting grid connected, net metered solar irrigation pump where the farmers have option to get a surplus income. That matters a lot. And then that's where we are seeing the trend is the first is off-grid, water and energy inefficient. Second is energy efficient, but water inefficient. And when we are going for the grid connected, net metered, potentially energy and water efficient. These are the initial findings. Now let's look into the part of Pakistan. In part of Pakistan, this is the solar pump. This is the pumps. In around 1.6 million tube wells that exist in part of the Pakistan. And according to the government of Pakistan survey, that 2,000 solar pump exist till 2022. But very interestingly, when we look around on that, sorry, just on with this one, we did it under the Nexus Games project, under that one, the FCDO project. We have geotag of all the tube well in case of Punjab, 1.36 million tube well. And that gives us all the information. And we have recently launched that one, the website under the Nexus Games project, where we have launched that one. And now the irrigation department is using for the decision making and everything for the whole Punjab. One thing is very common when we are doing a geotagging. We looked around that one. We have information about the number of tube wells, every single number of tube wells at the union council level and every small scale level. That's what in the Rahim Jarkha is the Nexus Games project. This is the FCDO project. Getting that information was a very critical. What could be done next is we mapped on a groundwater vulnerability assessment in Punjab using the ground 1.3 million tube wells. And when we look around the 1.3 million tube wells, that's giving us that when we should promoting solar irrigation only, which is safe and which is a groundwater quality is good. But out of that 1.3 million tube well, government was saying 2,000 solar tube well only exist. But interestingly, you look around that one, 47,000 solar pumps exist in the part of that one. And again, it's very clear. There are the Rahim Jarkha district, which is a part of our project site, that they have largest solar tube wells, and then that's how it's showing it, the part of the district and everyone. We did it also install the instrument. So we went into the further groundwater vulnerability within that one by installing city divers and everything, so that we could recommend to the government of Punjab where they should be installing. Now looking around on this one, we are able to guide to the government how they could where they should be planning, especially the government scheme for the solar pumps. This is here again showing the district Rahim Khan. Here you could see on the top of this part, you see it's a plenty of surface water. The groundwater is not a problem. Vulnerability is very low. But this area, the groundwater vulnerability is quite high. There are sugar mills and everything. But interestingly, when we are looking on solar pumps, where the groundwater quality is good, the farmers are abundantly applying that one, the solar pumps, and where the groundwater vulnerability is low, and due to that one, it's so much around 100-meter water depth, the farmers are not able to go for solar pumps. Looking around the overall, the district-wise solar distribution, this is giving us a first-time insight about the solar pumps, and the government has a plan to invest around the 100,000 solar tube wells in part of Punjab. And that's where under the Nexus Gain project, under the solar project, we are directly working with the government and saying it, how we could guide them on the best way of that for not impacting on the groundwater sustainability and everything. Another is important that the last Claudia 2 slide, we also looked around the Women Empowerment and Energy Assess Index in Nepal and Pakistan. This is the work which Claudia is leading it as a work package lead in Nexus Gain, where we looked around that one, what that means, the Women Empowerment and Energy Index is a set of standardized measures to assess the empowerment of women and men in energy use and household energy decisions. So we did a very comprehensive survey, baseline survey, and looking around the domestic and productive use related to the men, and as well as understanding the women's agency in energy decisions and individual and household outcome. The findings are very interesting. We find it very important that if the female empowerment in the energy access and decisions are high, in case of Pakistan, that has improved directly dietary diversity in case of Pakistan. Overall, that one, the clean energy sources of that one, we are looking around that one, it's quite high in case of, the likelihood is quite high in case of Pakistan and then the Nepal. Lastly, we are developing that one, the solar irrigation pump sizing and solar suitability mapping tool. We have already developed for India and Nepal. Now we are developing in Pakistan. Why we are doing it? The idea is that when we design the irrigation system, that the pumping system be matched to meet the irrigation demand, as well as also looking around that not oversizing, not undersizing, make sure the solar pumps are providing that one, because most part of the South Asia, there is no technical guidance. It's the layman who's making those decisions and everything. And we'll be having a launch of the workshop at the end. Thank you, everyone. Thank Claudia.
Okay. Thank you very much. So we have now moved to another solution, solar irrigation, but that's of course also a threat to sustainable water use in drylands. And now we come to our last presentation. Will be presented by the co-organizer of this session, Dr. Ajit Gobind. He's a senior climatologist and systems modeler and head of GeoAgro at ICARDA, Egypt. And he's going to talk to us about digital technologies, which is a further solution. Yeah, please, over to you.
Thank you for this opportunity, and thanks, Claudia. Yeah, so we have a lot of solutions, but we need to take the solutions to the stakeholders, especially the stakeholders who are at the grassroots level. This is where the digital technologies can play a great role. And so I will just talk about some of the things that we have been doing at ICARDA. So just echoing what Dr. Yoshida was mentioning, the global drylands, especially the non-tropical drylands where we're currently located, the vulnerability is huge. We can see at the end of the century, the positive anomaly can be as high as 6 degrees. So, yeah. So back in 2020, we did a large stakeholder consultation where around 500 stakeholders from around 20 countries came together and discussed what are the important solutions, and digital solutions came out as a very important action plan where climate resilience can be achieved. So since then, the CGIAR also has changed in terms of one CGIAR, and where we are focusing on transforming food, land, and water systems. And here, digital actions play a critical role. So, you know, when we talk about digital actions, especially the one we are doing at ICARDA, we have 2 actions, where first we have the science, where we use various digital solutions like remote sensing, artificial intelligence, machine learning, IoT devices, climate analytics. Those are the part of the science plan. But we have to take that science to the stakeholders, be it high-level stakeholders like policymakers or grassroots level stakeholders like farmers. That's where another type of digital actions using various types of platforms, where these platforms are used to disseminate digital solutions. So on both sectors, we are working. So just to show you some of the examples, this is an example of how multi-temporal remote sensing can be used to locate the hotspots of yield gap. And this type of solutions can help policymakers to focus their policies in the right geographies and at the right time. This is an example of one of our digital actions using modeling, numerical models, and using models to do ex-ante assessments to understand, to identify some of the pertinent climate adaptation solutions. So we have been helping the World Bank to develop investment blueprints for Iraq and Jordan. This clearly shows barley can be a climate resilient crop when we talk about food climate investments in Jordan or Iraq. This is another example of how digital actions can be used to understand how effective are the adaptation solutions. We have a lot of adaptation options, but how effective are they? So models can be used to identify how long those adaptation actions are valid. And climate analytics plays a crucial role in those type of things. Now, as I mentioned, the science is one part, but digital actions can also be used to disseminate through e-extension activities. In that context, ICARDA has been making several digital solutions under different projects, of course. So this GeoGrow Master for Egypt, iKrishi for India. For Central Asia, we have Decon, and also for Morocco. These are obviously made under the context of different projects. And these are all context specific, depending on the countries. And for greater adoption, we ensure that these tools are developed in the local language. So just showing some of the solutions that are provided through this type of digital platforms. For example, agronomic advisory, climate information systems, ask an expert, because farmers sometimes need to ask experts the questions. And it is through this platform that farmers can get answers in real time, especially using AI and other means. So many services are provided through these apps. So this app provides services not only to the farmers, but also guide the experts to take the right actions and provide early warning, etc. So these are some of the, just showing some pictures, how this digital extension looks like. We have been capacitating not only the farmers, but also the extension agents and experts, how to use this type of apps to provide advisory and early warning. So capacitating the stakeholders, especially the farmers, is very important, especially in the context of digital divide, especially in countries like Egypt, where lots of digital illiteracy is there. So socioeconomic challenges are there in adopting digital solutions. Yeah, my concluding statements are: climate adaptation in the agriculture sector in the global land should be multifactorial, multidisciplinary, and multisectorial. Because of something like water is not a issue that is focused only on the agriculture sector. It can be in other sectors also. So we have to consider all multiple sectors. Digital augmentation is probably the only solution that can accelerate climate adaptation. Of course, climate adaptation technologies are there, but we need digital solutions to accelerate that. Digital augmentation should have thematic diversity. We should not, because most of the time what happens is that there are lots of apps available out there, but farmers cannot download hundreds of apps for one for seeds, one for pests, and this is one for water management. It has to have a one-stop shop approach. One last point is that engagement with stakeholders is critical, because adoption of these digital tools is very important. And we have to co-develop this along with the stakeholders, be it with the farmers or be it with the policymakers. With that, I will conclude. Thank you very much.
Oops, thank you very much, I think, for a very interesting complementary presentation to what we have heard in terms of solutions to address water scarcity and drought in the drylands. And I would now like to hand over to Dr. Sikandar Kurdi to manage the policy panel. So we have 3 or possibly 4 panelists. One has not physically come. And yeah, they will discuss, questions, what they've heard, but especially where they see highest impacts from interventions that address drought and water scarcity. So I'm handing over to Dr. Sikandar Kurdi. She is the head of the International Food Policy Research Institute in Egypt. So please, over to you to manage this panel. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Claudia. Okay, so we have our, hello? It's working. Okay, thank you so much. So we have first Rana Al-Haj, who is the regional coordinator for Wiser MENA UK Met Office. So for the first question, Rana, could you talk a little bit about what you're doing to address water scarcity and drought?
Yeah, thank you very much. Good morning, everyone.
Sorry, Rana, just 1 second. I think we have a technical issue. We can't hear you yet. Do we have could you check your settings on your side?
I think we did check them before the session.
Okay, just
Yes.
thank you for your patience as we just check with the technical side here. Otherwise, perhaps we go to our in-person guest here, Amias. Yes, please come up and join. Rana, we'll come back to you in a moment. We're just going to switch. Okay, so thank you so much. Amias is a land health scientist at the Center for International Forestry Research, C4. And
yeah, let me try to speak it up. Is that okay? At least, it's just a big background noise. Anyway, so I am Ermias Betamarian from the World Agroforestry Center in the C4 together. And then so happy to be with the CG family. Again, it's very warm and comfortable. Yes, I think the topic I was given is really why, after I heard all this, what does it really mean for the UNCCD? And then what does it mean, particularly also for the global environmental facility when it comes to resource? And then the topic I was given mainly, I would like to really focus a bit on droughts, to be honest. So in terms of the whole UNCCD is just, it has a very strong science wing. And then the science really produces a number of evidence to, give guidance to the country parties. Every 2 years, for example, countries will request, what is the knowledge gap that you have? They identify 2 topics every 2 years. So the science policy interface is interested to produce evidence on the 2 topics and they report back to them so that they use those solutions to adjust the way they really perform in terms of land degradation neutrality. So I served with SPI, Science Policy Interface, for 4 years, and then twice, if I give you an example, countries asked that, how do you really relate sustainable land management to soil carbon or carbon in general? Okay. If you do sustainable land management, this is how we are going to relate it into carbon and then link it to climate and biodiversity. So we come back and they report back to them, they negotiate, debate, and then adopt and go. So right now what's happening even yesterday is that in the last 2 years, they requested, we need a technical evidence on the trends in aridity. That is one paper which has came out. The second one is we need also evidence in terms of sustainable farming and sustainable land use planning. So that's how it's really going to happen. So in doing so, the SCPI normally prepares a number of reports. One is, which I would really advise for this group to read, is trends in aridity. So that's what they are going to really advise country parties to consider, which is quite related to moisture, water, agriculture, and ecosystem services. So the second one is in terms of the economics of droughts, which was really launched just yesterday. I also encourage the whole CGIAR family and then all of us to go and then read the economics of drought, because they would like to have evidence in terms of what does it mean. So I think that is a very wonderful report. And then of all, they really came up with one of the strongest special report of this COP is on sustainable land use to stay within the planetary boundary. So that is going to have even 1 o'clock. They are going to present it at mid-03 if you are coming there. So they would like to really link it land into the planetary boundary. And then the finding is showing that investing on sustainable land management and managing land is critical to stay within the planetary boundary because it influences 7 out of the 9 planetary boundaries. So that is a kind of evidence, and then that really goes to the country parties. So when it comes to like global environmental facility, it is about integrating the 3 Rio conventions. That's why integration is so important. The land is important, water is important, biodiversity is important, climate, and all are important. Then how do you really integrate them together? So I was so happy to serve also the Science Technical Advisory Panel for Land for Global Environmental Facility. We have a session tomorrow. You are very welcome. So what we are trying to do is that really, how do we really consider drought as a critical component of GF investment? Because it is affecting globally number of people. So GF9 most likely is going to consider drought as a very critical topic where countries are going to. So that would be very good thing for the CGIAR and then all other partners to really to consider. Do I have 1 more minute? You can stop me anytime if you wish. Yes, and then maybe 1 more minute. Then in that case, then so what Jeff, particularly in the UNCCD, would also like to do is, I think we need to really invest on the 5 basic levers of sustainable land management and drought. One is capacity for change. Do they have like institutional and technical capacities at the ground level, landscape level? That's one. Second one, governance and policy, particularly harmonization. And then Carlo Mansour yesterday was saying that, do we need to really bring agriculture and environment ministries together? How? We don't know. There is also one interesting promise that we need to have, this kind of COP, 3 of the COPs together at least every 3 years, which is interesting. I don't know if it could happen. It could be 1 million people. I don't know who's coming. So climate, biodiversity, and land, at least once in a while, they need to come together and then have, it could be like a World Cup, right? So, and then also multi-stakeholder, dialogue, and then innovation and learning and finance. I think for me, the last message is, I think coming from the science policy side, I think it's really so good to be part of the science policy interface, supporting the UNCCD, and then also supporting indirectly the Global Environmental Facility is a way to go. And then in terms of investment, Jeff would like to give 10% of its budget to CSOs by 2030. So do these CSOs have all those 5 levers they have? May or may not. So that could be in terms of capacity building for the CSOs to play a very proactive role in terms of achieving land degradation. Yes, that is to say. Thank you very much for your attention.
So,
I see.
yeah, why don't you just, then we can be here. Rena, could you try again to connect? Well, I think we've been able to fix something. Please.
Yes, can you hear me now? Can you hear me?
Could you say something? Oh, I'm sorry.
We can hear you online, but we're getting an echo, Rana.
Yes.
I think the room doesn't hear us.
No.
We are trying to solve this now. Just in contact them.
No worries.
As I can hear you, and on YouTube as well, we can hear you. So just give us a moment.
We're good.
I just muted the room now because of the echo, and I'm talking with them, so we'll sort this in a few minutes. Maybe you can speak now and see if they can hear you.
Can you hear me now?
I don't think so.
No. Okay, but I can't hear you anymore, so okay. Good morning, everyone. So I'm just go back to actually introducing myself. I am the regional coordinator for the Wiser MENA program, which is an FCDO-funded program implemented by the UK Met Office. However, I come to this position from the Red Cross Red Crescent Climate Center, where I act as the regional focal point for MENA. And I think this is just a great example of the importance of working between this interface of science and practice. As Red Cross and as a humanitarian sector in general, there's a long experience with responding to the impacts of drought, particularly those that pertain to situations of severe food insecurity, famine, epidemics, and other humanitarian disasters. So when we look at drought from a humanitarian perspective and in practice, it is more as a socioeconomic combination of water shortage that's actually producing stress on humans and the livelihood systems that they depend on. With climate change and experience by the Red Cross on the ground with the communities that we work with, this increased impacts of climate is very well felt and observed, including increases in impacts of drought due to increased drought intensity, frequency, or length. This often exacerbates existing humanitarian issues and in other cases contributes to actually emerging humanitarian issues as experiences as communities who have not experienced drought previously start to experience it, and they don't actually have the experience to deal with it. And I'm just saying all of this to say that all of this experience have led to an understanding that there needs to be a shift, a change in approach in how humanitarian organizations are actually looking at climate as a compounding risk in a already fragile and vulnerable context. And this is why the Red Cross, I'll just give two examples of this mind shift in the approaches, one of which is a shift or more use of an anticipatory action approach, And this is a mechanism where there's a more use of climate and weather forecast and understanding and risk analysis to actually enable timely disbursement of funds to be able to implement early actions before a potential disaster happens. And this is a change from before, where it's more related to response after we start observing the impacts of a certain hazard or disaster. And obviously this anticipatory action, especially when it comes to drought, is sometimes very complex, because drought in itself is sometimes complex to define. There are so many contributing factors that play into the impact. Therefore, it's very much dependent on advancement in meteorological science and observations. And as these observations become more accurate, we see more anticipatory action programming related to drought around the world. So that is one of the changes and approaches that the Red Cross is taking to address these kind of risks. The other one is actually an institutional journey that all the partners in the Red Cross, including the International Federation of the Red Cross and the national societies and the International Committee of the Red Cross and its delegations, are undertaking this institutional transformation towards climate smart programming. And that means better understanding of climate risks and how to integrate these risks into their programming and into the operations. The ultimate aim of this institutional journey is actually to support the efforts for more locally led adaptation at scale, with, of course, special recognition of the effectiveness of nature-based solutions, particularly when it comes to drought and water scarcity. Yes, going back to you. I'm not sure. I cannot hear you, so someone will need to type for me.
Hello, everyone. I hope you can hear me. I don't have a slides, but I wanted to take the questions or to address really the panel by from two perspectives. One is how GCF really what we are actually doing to address the water scarcity and drought, and second, in terms of like where we should invest to make really impact. But before to address those two questions, I think I wanted to first of all explain the Green Climate Fund. It's really the largest climate fund under UNFCCC that really served the Paris Agreement. And talking finance here, I think before we talking about this, I think we really need to understand what are really the challenge of access finance in the water sector, where again, to be able to invest in water scarcity, to tackle that. I think one is really like the underpricing value of water, and that of course water has to be maintained as a public good. So it's and that also become make investor are reluctant to invest in water sector. But also when we look at the water service by itself, it's also again it's underpriced. We have seen many cases even in the MENA region where really like low cost recovery become very dominant in most of the water investment project. Again, water project or irrigation agriculture project are capital intensive, And that again become as require an extra cost upfront and always taking a long payback period to be payback. And one of the key aspect as well, it's really like the poor business design in terms of like the operational and maintenance cost and ensuring sustainability of that investment. So for us as a green climate fund, in a way, how we actually do this, we are recognizing water scarcity and drought as really a critical challenge that being accelerated by climate change and of course impacting the food system, the ecosystem, the health, the livelihood of people, and of course mainly in the vulnerable communities as well. So the way we do this at different actions here. From a strategy perspective, so we have released our GCF strategy last October, where it has clearly defined a clear target for us in terms of like the number of agriculture hectares that we really need to improve, including irrigation aspects, but also in terms of the resilience infrastructure as well across water and agriculture sector with a clear target again for countries. But also to be able to develop the knowledge and understanding or supporting really our stakeholder and partners to access climate finance. We have also released the water sector guide, which is again a very strategic document where have clearly defined two pathways for paradigm shift. One pathway, paradigm shifting for mitigation aspects, and another one for adaptation, where clearly define really what could be type of project that can actually come to access climate finance, where again, very aligned with what we have heard from Claudia, from Ajit, from Mohsen. I think like all the different examples that been provided very aligned with what GCF can actually come and support and finance as well. But moving from really knowledge and strategy to really to finance. So we have two clear mechanisms here where we really support those catalyze climate finance, but also strengths really the capacity building. Because again, capacity building is one of the key challenge. So in that, we have really like a readiness modality that really, again, supporting countries to bring that integrated planning. So they really avoid silo policy and silo plan. So they bring water, agriculture, and climate change in an integrated manner, but also to support that policy aspect as well. Policy reform, support local governments and institutions in developing those policy, regulatory framework, governance mechanism for like to manage water resource more sustainable. And if we talk about really project finance and the project finance here, we really need to use our capacity by able to work with all financial instruments like grant to concessional loans to equity guarantees to be able really to act as a catalytic fund and able to mobilize more resources or more fund for innovative ideas that's been presented by Ajit, for example, to take it to the scale. Like I think all the solutions that have been presented today are it can be scalable and it can be taken up to scale to really enhance the water security and improve resilience against drought in agriculture land with focus, of course, on mitigation and adaptation outcomes. But also working on like how we use our capacity to be able really to establish this new blended finance where we bring public and private finance together and sharing that risk and de-risk that investment to mobilize more resources into the water sector. And we have a few examples here that actually show that opportunities that actually can be done and attract really investment. So, for example, in Jordan, we have a project that's being funded by our board for like 50 million, and that also by working with the community, with the farmers to really bring climate resilience, agriculture, also working with the ecosystem, but mainly really to establish also an evolving fund for the community. So farmers need to become as, again, treated as investors for the investment they do in their farm. So they can actually have that opportunity of access to grant, but make it as evolving fund by working with them through capacity building, through enhancing seeds, through enhancing infrastructure to ensure really they are improving their return on their investment so they can actually pay it back and make it as evolving. We also have another blended finance opportunities where, again, we've been able to work on water reuse for agricultural purpose, but for other purpose as well. And that was, again, to address all the challenge with access to finance. So the opportunity that we are working here in terms of access to finance was through our financial modalities, we are able really to mobilize that. I think overall, we've been able to invest in water sector up to 3 billion so far, and those 3 billion from our finance being able to leverage up to 15 billion from other sectors or from other investors. And it's varied from project to project, but I think in one project we managed to go for 1 to 5.6 from private sector investments. So to cut the story shorter in interest of time, I wanted to move to the second point where really like where we can actually see the high impact here. I think one of the key aspects here to maximize impact while ensuring really equity and sustainability. I think investment here need to look at the opportunity for example, of nature-based solution. And we have a great project that's been approved in Pakistan for Recharge Pakistan that's really taking that nature-based solution as a mainstream for flood mitigation and of course resilience or improving resilience. I think that has a great potential and can really provide a lot of cool benefits for biodiversity or ecosystem, but also community resilience. The second ideas could be really looking at those water efficiency technologies that can really, again, scaling up the precise irrigation or wastewater reuse or digital monitoring system to be able to optimize really water use across agriculture and improve the food system. But again, one of the key aspects here could be also looking at how we strengthen the community ownership. I think it's, again, talking about MENA region and the scale of the vulnerability and conflict and fragility. I think we really need to think about how we empower vulnerable and vulnerable communities, including women and indigenous community, and how we can improve really the scale of equity and ensure that long-term access to the resources and of course, reducing more to improve the livelihood. The other point could be looking at climate resilience food system as well, in terms of investing in sustainable agriculture practice that can actually minimize the water demand, but also improve the soil health and while maintaining the productivity. Lastly is really about that nexus approach or cross-sector collaboration, where we really need to think about the opportunity of promoting that integrated approach that actually producing more with less inputs in terms of water, energy, and other inputs in the agriculture sector as well, to be able really to improve the food security and also improve the water security as well, or efficiency. I think that's one of the opportunities that actually sit very clearly in the MENA region and can really attract investment, because once you take that the whole integrated sector or nexus approach, you can look at the whole value chain, and you can also create the opportunities of acceptable revenue streams that are really aligned with the SDGs and also aligned with the Paris Agreement. So I will stop here and happy to take a question. Thank you.
Thank you, Amgad. I just asked the AV to unmute themselves so that we can also hear the room. So hopefully this will happen soon. Thank you. So it looks like we are still having the same audio issues. Hopefully they will be sorted soon.
There is a discussion because, and then sometimes it depends also on the donors. If you go like even within GF, there is a biodiversity fund. So a group of people might say that we would like, in the CG bilateral and then, center specific or stuff like that. Then they will come that, we would like to support the biodiversity. So there will be a biodiversity fund managed within GF so that it is not only GF that money cannot go for land or climate, for example. But however, you are absolutely right. When you take synergy and then lever, I think the whole thing is not only about practical policy and stuff like that, but also it should include finance to me. Thanks. Well, maybe one more point also in terms of action, what the UNCCD is supporting country parties is to have a drought plan. So I would be very happy if you go in and read and then do a review of what is the country's planning in terms of their droughts. Then there is a review work done by Daniel Sagai and then the Secretariat. So I think in terms of policy, it would be really interesting to see what has really happened after countries do the plan and then before. I think that is one thing that countries are very encouraged. LDN target planning is done, and then now they are also putting drought in their national agenda and in their plan. So some countries did, but it is really worth reading and then reviewing that too. Thanks. Yeah.
So I think that's a great point in terms of what is the drought mitigation plan of the country, right? Are there any priority countries, specific countries where UNCCD is looking at the investment or any country?
Well, I think all member countries are equally valid because in terms of within the UN, the UNCCD is also there is a system called RNF, global mechanism. So the global mechanism is the wing of the UNCCD to support countries how to do it in terms of finance, in terms of capacity, and then the UNCCD has it has a science wing, and also it is a global mechanism. In terms of prioritization, of course, mostly countries which are more vulnerable for land degradation and droughts. And then also, I think countries which need more capacity in the resource. That's why UNCCD is, but it's not really big, so to say. But oftentimes this is a political discussion and then bring all signed, member countries together. That's why if you go to the plenary, all of them flag questions, all of them questions in everything that the UNCCD is doing. And sometimes it's really good because all the CGs have a desk and a CSO. So listen and then sit there, and sometimes you can also give you a chance to react. So that would be really interesting to go to the plenary sometimes. Thanks.
I'm just asking you from Climber initiative. It is a CGIAR initiative of climate resilience, where we are focusing on Morocco. Morocco is a country which is undergoing the 6th year of drought, consecutive drought. Is there any possibility to get support endorsement for CG work from the UNCCD so that we can try to influence national policies? For example, in Climber, we are trying to influence the current national policies on climate adaptation and to make some refinements in national adaptation plans or NDCs. So will UNCCD or other bodies advocate such actions,
I think the first way to have, expand the sphere of influence of the CGIAR is when you are working closely with the science policy interface. Otherwise, if you bring any external knowledge, the country parties will not discuss about it. And then they will not adopt it because it is a binding document. So the best thing is that to understand what are the two topics that they pick, and then how do you really work with the science policy interface. Sometimes they advertise for consultancy. Sometimes they ask also volunteers to review. It's an open system. So that's why I say CGIAR need to look like yourself. We have a case study from Morocco that I would like to give you this report. They will look at it and then they will take it. If they take it, that's how you are going to really influence. So, but the entry point is through the science policy interface. That's what only countries discuss about. Even yesterday, all the two reports, aridity, trends in aridity and sustainable management, they were presented. And the country parties and then all CSOs, including us, were reacting to that one. So that's how I think the entry point is through the science policy interface mechanism. Yeah, I think you can make that. And then if you find me around, I will introduce you with some of the chief scientists, Baran, or he's a very open-ended guy. And then that's how it should be. If you bring any external, I think countries will not discuss at all. Even they discuss about even the word. Particularly if you go like Latin America and Argentina, if you watch one word, they say, no, this word has to be removed. Okay. Cultural values, interpretation to the country parties. So the whole mechanism, but I think it is really good to be close to the process, understand the process, find entry points, and then really, bring that whole evidence and science into the system. Yeah, I mean, a lot of opportunity there, so to say. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And any of the other speakers would like to address those questions? Otherwise, with apologies for the technical difficulty, thank you all so much. And it was a very, I think, informative and interesting conversation. Thank you to all the speakers.
But if you come to the net zero trading, it's really interesting.